What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020, Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by DovMen Plus Care. And in 2022 and 2021, reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. We are broadcasting live on November 25th. November's done, and Christmas is so around the corner. What? It is so around the corner. So for those, again, this time you're in the U.S., you're just having a Thanksgiving, and we're going to be talking about Thanksgiving because I was in a conversation with someone yesterday, and they say they don't celebrate it. They said I don't celebrate because it's disrespectful to the Indigenous culture of America. So we'll get to that. That's one of our common stories tonight. So first things first, as always, if you're up to it, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube. Hit the subscribe and the notification button so you get notified. Also share it out, but also follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Also, if you want to advertise your product, service, or business on our platform, we'd love you to do that. Get out to some really good, intelligent consumers, human beings, etc. So feel free to email me at dr.vibe@thedrvibeshow.com. And finally, join that Discord group. There's lots of things happening there. I'm telling you, we keep up the conversation in between, and so many things going down in that Discord group. So it is Primetime Saturdays with Aisha and LaLa, and I'm going to make it through this. I had some good food. There's some good walnuts. Yeah, some good walnuts. Really, so I'm so healthy. Yeah, right. All right. So we've got. Yeah, I know. We've got Aisha. We got LaLa. They're in the house. What is going on, ladies? How we doing?
Good.
I'm doing excellent.
Good to hear. How's the week been?
It's been pretty good. I got to spend time with family on Thursday, and so that was probably the best part of it. And had leftovers for days.
Wow.
The best part.
Oh, well. So, and how was your week, LaLa?
It was a little stressful, but it ended on a good note, and I'm always grateful for that. So I'm grateful for all the struggles because sometimes when we're going through the struggles, preparing us for something bigger that we don't quite see, and that's how I choose to look at it. So through the struggles, I'm still growing.
Fantastic. So myself, I'm a very close friends with Roger and Camille Dundas, who are the founders and run BuyBlacks.com, which is Black Canada's largest online magazine. And they this week did their fall restaurant week. So I was at a restaurant on Monday, a restaurant on Wednesday, and a restaurant again last night. The same restaurant on Monday and last night, Sugarcane Restaurant, and amazing. Then on Wednesday, went to an incredible place called Vegan Delights. So good. And one of the things they were great at is they had a gluten-free cheesecake.
You had me a cheesecake.
And they had this carrot coconut soup.
Oh,
To die for.
Well, I don't like cooked carrots.
I love carrots, so I know that.
I think it was carrot coconut. Whatever it just was really good. And at Sugarcane, one of their specialties is what's it? Jerk corn. So it's a corn on a little piece of corn on a stick, and it's seasoned with jerk seasoning and coconut shred. Out of bounds.
I would probably like to have that and some elote, which is the Mexican street corn with the cheese and the paprika and the and I squeeze like lime on it. Have it like just have those two, because I love corn.
Oh, it's like everyone. I've been to sugarcane a number of times before, but everyone who tried it for the first time last night, they went, "What is this?" Like they
Wow.
went, "What is this?" And it's great establishment. Yes, I'll give him the plug. Run by two sisters and a cousin. They are phenomenal, and you know what? They have I think the staff. No one's been there less than a year, staff wise,
Oh, wow.
Wow.
which is very rare, especially in
Yeah.
black establishments this year. And actually, here's how good the staff is. About 3 weeks ago, the two sisters and the cousin, they went to Mexico on a vacation. The day after they leave, who calls the restaurant? Prime Minister of Canada, saying, "Hey, we want to come down tomorrow."
Oh, whoa.
So, and the staff handled it amazing. I actually spoke to the lady who was in charge when they were away, and she says, I go, "Did you sleep the night before?" Goes, "No, I didn't sleep at all." But she said they were really nice, and it was really kind. And sat down. They had their red stripe, and just hung out and enjoyed it. So it was a good time. But if you either of you come to Toronto and sugarcane is still there, we need to take you to sugarcane. It was out of bounds. And Vegan Delight, oh, so good, so good. So yeah, I cheated a little bit, family, this week, but we're back on. Last night had to have the why am I New Orleans? What's their famous dish with rice?
Oh, jambalaya or etouffee?
Jambalaya. Yeah, jambalaya with chicken.
Look,
lamb.
Aisha and I both knew.
Yeah, I'm going. I hadn't had it in so long. I didn't know couldn't remember what it was. So, All right. What's up, Jen Myers? You are in the house. And man, Jen Myers is strong in the Discord room, family.
Yes, she is. She's shown us some stuff.
Yes, she is showing us some stuff. But I want to start off with something. Aisha, talk about this, please.
Yes, we have a Primetime Saturday with Aisha and LaLa pop-up shop for the holidays. We've got great merchandise. We're going to have a more permanent store at the beginning of next year, but this one, so you can get some of your holiday shopping in, get great gifts. We've got stemless wine glasses, coffee mugs. We've got a coffee tumbler. We've got glass tumblers. We've got leggings, pajama pants, scarves, sweatshirts, blankets, several different kinds of candles, different sizes, buttons, just a ton of stuff, ton of merchandise. I think there's like a total of 24, 25 products that you can choose from. Great sizes. And the company that we're working with can usually get everything's custom made. So it's made on demand. And so they can usually get everything completed and out within 48 hours.
So you can cuddle up with us on the couch when
Yes.
we're doing the show.
Yes. And yes. And if you want to, there's even a Bluetooth speaker if you want to blast your Saturday nights with us, your Bluetooth speaker.
Wow.
I actually ordered I actually ordered some pins and one of the bags. So I'm looking forward to that coming in.
Okay, so I'm just showing everybody what the store looks like. I'm going to stop sharing it on
T-shirts, pillows. We've got all kinds of merchandise. It's lots of fun.
So what I'm going to do now is, while I'm also going to share the link.
It was fun to create. So after the holiday, I'm going to create some more things, some different kinds of things. So look for that at the start of next year. That's going to be interesting too. And if there's some kind of product that you don't see that you would like to purchase, let us know. Send the email to Dr. Vibe or join the Discord and let us know there.
Yeah, let us know
what kinds of products you're interested in, and I'll see about making those.
Well, again, Aisha K. Staggers, you've been on fire as always, but this one I just went wow, and you put that up in a very short period of time.
That's
just like bam,
all bow down.
Yes,
I had nothing but time.
Yes, so there's the link, and if you say, "Oh, I can't copy it from the screen," look in your comment section wherever
Yeah.
you're watching this, either live or on the replay. It's in there. So it's
Yep.
on there. It's good to go.
You can go to my
So
Instagram too at AK Staggers. And there is I've posted it on my Instagram. So there's a link in the Instagram too. You can see some more pictures of some of the merchandise.
there we go. And Jen says, such a great idea. And also placing my order soon. So Jen, if you place an order, whatever you place it, we want a picture of it in the Discord group. We're calling you out on this now. If you're gonna do that, we want to see it in the Discord group. So there we go. Before we get into our conversation pieces, we didn't put it as a story, but the passing away of Rosalind Carter.
Yes, we didn't. We did get to talk about it last week a little bit because it happened. It happened, but we didn't. I think we mentioned it after the show, but we put it in our newsletter. Yeah, Rosalind Carter. First of all, you learn so much about her. I did not know that they were married for 77 years.
Incredible.
They were married longer than they were kids or longer than they were not married. You know what I mean? They got married when they were 18 and 21. They spent the majority of their lives together and they did everything together. And even one of the things that some of these first ladies are very interesting because during the on the 22nd, they were showing all kinds of JFK documentaries. And one of the things that I saw was a documentary about Lady Bird Johnson, who was the wife of Lyndon B. Johnson. And she was describing, her going back down south and what she experienced. And, just to listen to some of the things that they've said, listening to like different tapes and videos and things from Rosalind Carter, and you realize that these women put up with a whole lot of stuff. And but that they were no joke. But Rosalind Carter was she was the first lady that really changed the role of the office of the first lady and made it more of a public service role rather than someone who, because remember, it was the 1970s. It was 1976 when he won. So it started in 77, but came out of the 60s and 50s where, the first lady was expected to do the wifely kind of thing and hold tea parties, plant roses, do supportive kind of things. And then you have Rosalind Carter going in and taking on mental health and going and testifying before Congress. And so the first ladies that came after her, you have Nancy Reagan with the Just Say No campaign, Laura Bush eventually talking about libraries, Hillary Clinton really trying to pass health care, Michelle Obama with the healthy school lunches and things like that, and going, advocating for gun safety. So you really see this transformation of the first lady's role in helping to run the country, starting with Rosalind Carter.
Yeah,
and just how long they were.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I have, when I guess it was 8 or 9, and I had a cousin that worked very closely to the Carters in the White House. And she told me, because when you're a kid, you don't really quite understand, like how you think, wow, the president and the family, but you don't really see how important that is. And she said, she came home to visit and she was like, you could write Amy if you'd like to write Amy and I'll give her the letter. And I was like, okay, Amy's the daughter. So I wrote to Amy and Amy wrote back, but Rosalind also put in there, it's so nice for Amy to have a pen pal.
Wow.
And she didn't have to do that. She was still very involved with her family, not only just helping to run the country, because believe it or not, they were very, very close, very close. They were tied. They were still serving communities in there. Up till she had put in
up till he went into hospice, they were building houses together.
That's right. And so they get a bad rap. A lot of times they say Carter was like the worst president. I don't believe that. I believe he was one of the most strongest presidents that we had, who had compassion and truly cared about all people. But his whole family structure was that way.
Right.
And you cannot say his name without honoring the fact that his wife stood right beside him and carried her home.
Yeah. And the only time that they were not
Whoa. Gotta interrupt. This is huge. This is huge. We have a very special person tuning in right now. Dr. Aisha Watkins. Dr. Aisha, sorry to interrupt, but so good to have you here. Dr. Aisha, so good. Hey, if you want, I'll DM you and you can come into our conversation. We're talking a lot of good conversation topics. So, hey, I'm on Instagram in the background. If you want, I'd love to have you come in and join us because we're talking about a lot of great subjects. So,
yeah.
Hey, I'll send you the link through DM if you want to come in. More than happy, but we're very happy to have her here. She has her PhD in social work. She's also a trained certified trained trauma counselor, and also has been helping Black couples for over 10 years. So
Wow.
this is, that she's going, happy Thanksgiving. Well, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family and all the continued support you're giving to the Dr. Vibe family. I'm going to send you that link just in case you want to come in for a few minutes. So sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. What I was going to say was that, what Laura was saying was right about them getting a bad rap, about Jimmy Carter getting a bad rap. Because remember, it's kind of like it's always the junk that you inherit, right? People can't forget that the president that was before him resigned, and that the vice president that took over for that president pardoned the president who said he was not a crook. So, in all of this, inflation was getting bad in the 70s and that period of the 70s. Because, I think about Nixon resigned a month before I was born. So, that was also the same, what was it, like a week later after I was born, or like a week before, Good Times came on for the first time. And the show really talked about inflation in that first year. So inflation was really bad in 1974, and it was getting worse. So by the time Carter won in 76, first of all, whenever you see something like that, you're going to see you typically have seen a fluctuation. People change the party, and then they blame the party that takes over because all the policies from the previous party or the previous administration go into effect at that time. We've talked about this before in other conversations that, for example, Donald Trump people are like praise him for, the economy is so great, he did this and this. That's because all Barack Obama's policies went into effect in 2017, 2018, 2019. And so he got to ride the wave of that. And then at the beginning, all the Trump policies like hit Joe Biden. Like, for example, the Afghanistan situation, that was something that Trump signed in terms of how he left. So, Jimmy Carter fell victim to that. And then what we can't deny is that Ronald Reagan was a well-known actor.
Yes.
He won all the states but one, and you can't deny that his popularity as an actor helped, and then how he handled certain things as governor. And remember, America was coming off of this, the 70s. People were trying to get rid of all the turmoil of the 60s. And then by the 70s, the resurgence of the Southern strategy, which was what Reagan used. Reagan took a playbook, a play out of Nixon's book, and really reshaped that with the quote unquote welfare queen taking your money and all this other stuff, and reshaping that to the point where he made it okay for people to go back to those tropes and those things again. And no doubt that the taking of the guns away after the Black Panthers made that wrong turn into the state house in California when he was governor did help him. But state governments looked at looked at what he did there and tried to replicate it. And look where we are now with our gun violence issue with states.
All ties in, all building blocks.
Yeah.
Wow. So, just again, another shout out to Dr. Alicia. I have sent you the link via DM. So again, even if you want to come on for 2 or 3 minutes, appreciate it. But she says happy Thanksgiving. And also she says, oh, she has been counseling Black couples for over 20 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
So,
and so needed.
Yes. And Dr. Alicia, if you ever want either one of these ladies on Pillow Talk, I'll vouch for them 150%. Just saying that now. All right. Okay. Well, let's get to our first conversation piece. And let's talk about the history of Thanksgiving that doesn't acknowledge the very real suffering of Indigenous people in North America. Who'd like to start?
Well, I can.
I'll
I
start.
don't. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say, I don't think that. I think the way that people, I don't know. Going shopping last week, I was thinking about this because I noticed that how different people of different backgrounds celebrate the holiday. Not just celebrate the holiday, but in terms of the foods that they have at the holiday. And so I noticed that a lot of white Americans have what are considered these traditional foods that were at the quote unquote first Thanksgiving, and really play into the myth of that. And that when I looked at what Black folks were buying, these were things common that are indigenous to our culture. Meaning original to our culture in terms of this country, and what we were able to take and make for ourselves on the plantation and then continue with our families, and that we don't so much follow. Like, I never see people, with the little cornucopia on their table in Black families and things like that, the living of the myth. No one talks about pilgrims and things like that in our families. We really take the time really to connect with our families, most of all because people get the time off and can travel at that time. But also too, if you go back and you look at slavery, that was one of like maybe 3 days out of the year that the slave population, the enslaved, were allowed to take off later. Mind you, because you have to remember who's doing the cooking in the early times. But there were breaks given on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and maybe Easter, depending on the slave owner. But those holidays were considered times where we got, our ancestors got to take a breather. And so I think the way that I realized the way that we celebrate it is different. But knowing what kids are taught in school, they're not even, first of all, the Native American people that are described, they just ignore the fact that there were different tribes, different, and each one had their own language, they had their own culture, they had their own way of being. And I hope I don't get it wrong, but I think the Wampanoag is the indigenous group that this story originates with, and most people do not know that. I know that because there is, in Connecticut history, when I was in 6th grade, we took Connecticut history. Our history actually started with Native American groups, and so the textbook that we had, and so there were some of the groups. I believe we have a city named after the Wampanoag, if I'm not mistaken here, or a town or a street or a river or something. But yeah, people don't realize that it started with this group, and that it wasn't, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Oh, we'll teach you how to defend yourself and love you. No, it was they came and they transmitted different communicable diseases. You got to remember that when people traveled on these boats for long periods of time, there were no sanitary conditions. They were relieving themselves on the boat where they were also eating. So there was a lot of contamination. Diseases were spreading like crazy. No antibiotics and all that stuff. And so they get here, they're spreading the diseases, but then they're also massacring the
Yes.
people in the land. Why? Because that's how else do you go to another inhabitable country and decide you're going to take over that country? And so this story of the quote unquote first Thanksgiving, this myth that we perpetuate, the sad part is that we perpetuate it. And all of these people who want to ban books and who want to ban history in our country, they are responsible for this perpetuation of the myth around the quote unquote first Thanksgiving. That's my take.
And I tag right along with that. I mean, what did we learn? What did I learn in school is that everything was so friendly, and the Native Americans, and remember there was no tribes mentioned. There was just the Native Americans, which they didn't even call them that. Then they called them Indians.
Yeah.
Just welcomed us with open arms and said, "Here, come and take our land." But you know what? They don't teach that the Mayflower was not the first contact with Indigenous people. There were many, many years long before that where we've had the contact, and they were horrible, where they actually stole Indigenous people and took them back to Europe. Okay, so no one talks about that. No one talks about how these tribes already had an established community and way of life before we got here. Why is it that everybody except white folk didn't exist or have anything of intelligence or importance until white folks stepped in? These people were here. This is their land. This is their culture, and yet once again, white Americans want to come in, and white people just want to come in and take it over. But that is the history of the world. It seems that no matter wherever we go, that's all of a sudden when it becomes important enough for history to be taught. Now that we're here, we need to make it history. But I want to acknowledge the fact that I definitely understand this history. I have taught it to my son. My son still talks about it. I speak about it to other people. But I also feel that there is a time for us to express gratitude as well. It doesn't have to be on that day. Sometimes my family doesn't even celebrate Christmas on Christmas. It's whenever we can get together. I don't think that we should take that part away from a tradition. But I also firmly believe, that we should never hide the truth. And that is exactly what is going on in America right now with the banning of the books, with we can't talk about that. Be quiet. You can't do this. You can't do that. Everything is coming down from a culture of enslavement. Let's call it like it is. They've done it before. They're doing it again. They're enslaving minds and corrupting them to their truth, not the real truth.
And the sad part is that when you look at anybody's history, and I always say this when I teach Black history and I talk about Black history, particularly when I was teaching college, I wanted to make sure that people understood that Black history, for example, the way it is taught in this country starts with pain and ends with pain. It starts with the enslavement of Black people, and usually by the time they end it with the assassination of Martin Luther King, and everything else in between is painful. And that is the very same way that we teach the histories of marginalized people in this country, whether they be Black, whether they be Indigenous, whether they be Asian of from the various Asian countries, whether it be the history of the Jews in this country, whether it be the history of the LGBTQ community, the history of women even. There is not one group, even Latinos, what we're seeing now, there's not one group in this country that is not white, Christian, heterosexual male that has that comes in with a just an origin story that's not painful and doesn't end with pain in the conventional way that we teach history to our children in schools. There's nothing you would think that Black history in America does not, for example, does not start in America. Okay, it starts in Africa because because to act like there were no these people just were brought here and they're detached and there's no history and they didn't exist prior to that is how you are able to enslave people for as long as they were to erase Native American indigenous tribes and only leave it down to one, Cherokee, is another way of distorting the history of this country. There were thousands of indigenous tribes, okay, coexisting in this country. So these are things that these different histories are things that you're not going to learn them in school. Your kids are not going to learn them in school. And you're not going to learn them watching mainstream TV. They are things that you have to go and seek out. It's knowledge you have to go and seek out, and you will be better for it because the learning the truth only benefits you. Not learning the truth, learning what they want you to learn, only benefits those bourgeoisie higher classes, the people who have the power. It is how they stay in power. You can control people for centuries if you keep them ignorant and unlearned. So this is how they were able to enslave our people for so long. But also too, when you sit and think about it, why do you think when we talk about politics in this country, why do you think the MAGA folks have been this detached from reality and attached to Donald Trump for going on 8 years now? Why? Because he said it himself, he likes the stupid people, right? It's because they do not seek out information on their own. They seek out the information that is going to keep them that way. And then they go down these rabbit holes because, and that's one of the unfortunate things about social media, about technology, about the internet, is that there are so many rabbit holes to keep people stupid in this, in this internet space. And, with little regulation. And so that's what's going to really get us in a lot of trouble. And when we talk about OpenAI a little later, that's a prime example of how this is working. You're muted, Dr. Vibe.
So true. I hear you 150%. Anything you want to add, LaLa, in regards to that?
No, because I mean, what we do talk about on this show a lot, and we just can't stress enough, is don't just take somebody else's word for it. Don't even just take our word for it. Go and educate yourself on what the truth really is. There's so many resources for you to do that. So your challenge is to educate yourself. And if you have children, educate them. The only way that we're going to be able to combat what's going on and the enslavement of the mind is to free the mind so that they can think outside the box.
Yeah.
Well, as Robert Nesta Marley said, emancipate yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? There's tons of different ways of getting information. One of the things that I've been paying a lot more attention to, especially when I'm in the car, is I listen to Urban View on Sirius XM. Great folks there like Joe Madison, Shermichael Singleton gives you his view. Remember, he used to be a diehard Republican, and now he can't recognize that party, but he's got some conservative values, but not anything that you can't agree with, especially when he talks about helping Black men become more self-sufficient and independent. And build businesses. And then there's Heather B, if you remember her from The Real World. She now talks about uplifting things. And then there's Clay Kane. There's a whole lot of people on there that have different perspectives, but they cover things that are important specific to the Black community, but they cover issues and stories that we don't hear about, you don't see covered on CNN or MSNBC or ABC or any of the news networks. And so you've got to seek out alternative ways of getting information. And you know what? When all else fails, go the old school route. Go visit your local library and go to that section where they have all the newspapers from different places and just start looking at those headlines.
Well, you got to be careful in Toronto. The Toronto Public Library system was hacked.
Oh,
Well, no,
wow.
I don't mean online. I mean literally going into the physical library, because they still,
Yeah.
our libraries here still have the physical newspapers that you
Yeah.
can go in and look at those. You know, and again, if you are in a place that is banning books, whether it be from their public libraries, your local, the New York Public Library is offering free library cards if you're from that place, from those places, where they will get you those banned books in your hands. So make sure you look into that if you're in a place where this is happening.
And one thing that I know we're not going to talk about today, but I do want to mention your source, because the Scholastic book fairs, I love those. I absolutely love those. I can still, when I say that, I can smell the book
I can
fair.
smell the little
love
folder thing that used to go through and look at the different.
Yes, everything about the Scholastic fair. But I have recently found out that they too are making sure that they put the banned books in the banned places. And there are a lot of people who are walking out of that. So they are falling right into step with the banned book policies. So be very aware of where you're getting your resources, because you may be thinking, oh, I'm going to go to that fair and then pick up some of these books, and no, they've already taken them out of circulation.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things used to be going and getting that little catalog, the little 5-6 page catalog, and circling the books I wanted to buy.
Yes.
And you know that you want to know why kids don't like reading now. When you don't,
Okay. Well, no, remember, we're doing a story about schools coming up.
we are. But this is
Okay.
just to piggyback on what Laura's saying. You want to know why kids don't like reading? When you take away things that interest them and books that interest them, like they're doing with Scholastic. I'm just so disappointed between Scholastic and the College Board bending at the knee for these people. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. It's these people that couldn't even win their own elections. Remember, the Moms for Liberty folks are the ones going to these board meetings, and they couldn't even win elections, but they're being able to shape policies. And I just, it's just a sad day when kids can't look forward to that Scholastic book fair like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. You know something? It looks like Dr. Alicia is going to be joining us momentarily.
Okay.
Awesome.
So that will be very nice. And so I guess because I sent her the link via the back channel. So she says her daughter's going to a party. She says, give her a second. So she's going to be joining on in just a moment. So I'm very excited to have her join the conversation. And we'll see what we're going to. Well, next up, unless we have anything else we want to chat about on this one, we're good?
Yeah.
Okay. And it was funny. This was last week. This story was just starting. And talk about a story that progresses fast over like 72 hours. The OpenAI chaos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up an article and I'm going to read through what happened in a short period of time. So let me put up this article. Let me make sure I have it. Yes, here we go. OpenAI chaos. All right. So let's make sure it's up on the screen so everyone can see it. All right. So this is what we're going to so I'm going to go through this article. Family, usually things don't move this fast. So here we go. So I'm going to read through it because I think it's important, because people don't realize AI is going to impact everybody. And even another lens, the people who are making decisions with AI, none of them are black. So we'll just leave it at that. But so we're gonna read. So I'm gonna read this article through and say this article is from Axios, written by Megan Marone, and she says if we've learned anything from the mess at OpenAI, it is that the humans are still in charge for now. Here's a timeline of everything that we know happened with OpenAI's C-suite and boardroom this week. Why it matters: the culture clash inside OpenAI mirrors our own collective uncertainty and anxiety about the potential capabilities and risks of artificial intelligence. November 16th, Sam Altman gets a text Thursday night from one of OpenAI's co-founders asking him to join a Google Meet chat on Friday. November 16th, OpenAI reportedly contacts CTO Mira Murati and taps her to be the next OpenAI CEO. November 17th, Microsoft learns of Altman's firing, quote, a minute, unquote, before the world does. Wow. November 17th, OpenAI released a statement that Sam Altman will be leaving the company, quote, after a deliberate review of processes by the board, unquote, and Greg Brockman will be stepping down as chair. November 17th, late that evening, Brockman announces he is quitting the company. November 18th, Microsoft releases a statement, quote, we have a long-term partnership with OpenAI and Microsoft remains committed to Mira and their team as we bring in the next era of AI to our customers, unquote. November 18th, according to an internal memo from CEO Brad Lightcap, the firing of Altman was not the result of, quote, malfeasance or anything related to our financial business or business safety or security privacy practices, unquote. November 19th, Microsoft announces that it has hired Altman and Greg Brockman to lead a new research unit. November 20th, Altman tweets, quote, the mission continues, unquote. November 20th, OpenAI announces another interim CEO, Twitch co-founder Emmett Shear. November 20th, the overwhelming majority of OpenAI's 700 plus employees signed an open letter urging the board to resign, saying that it will quit if its members didn't. Whoa! November 20th, OpenAI chief scientist Ilya Sutskever publicly says he deeply regrets his role in Altman's firing. November 21st, OpenAI released ChatGPT with voice to unpaid customers, showing the organization continues its work even amid the drama. November 21st, CTO Mira Murati, briefly acting CEO, shared a photo with Brockman, Altman, and others, and herself at Altman's house with a caption, quote, still working on it, unquote. November 21st, just after 10 p.m., OpenAI released a statement that has come to, quote, a deal in principle, unquote, for Altman to return as CEO with a new board chaired by Salesforce co-CEO Brett Taylor. There you go. All that happened from November 16th to November 21st.
Well, I have a theory. I don't think any of this has to do with the company itself or how it's expanding per se. I have a feeling all this had to do with the shares of ownership on the back end, because Microsoft was very coy in saying that they have a relationship with OpenAI when they own 49% of the company. So I have a feeling that a little bit of this had to do with that 2% of ownership that if I'm not mistaken, the CEOs and COOs and CFOs and all of them have probably own that 2% of the company. And so when they fired them, realized that, wait a second, if Microsoft picks them up, they will own 51% of this company and will have controlling interest and can control how everything else functions. And remember, Microsoft has been very, in terms of how they've handled their business models, they tend to be very worker supportive, particularly with, something that I suspect OpenAI, not to the degree, is. But I don't think that this has anything to, I think that the statement that they said it has nothing to do with how their product or anything, I believe that part. What I think it had to do more with the ownership because of how things shifted with who was interim, who was not, the fact they were still working on it and trying to, when Microsoft picked them up, it's like, no, we got to get those two people back. And I realized that that's probably where that, it's probably that over that 2% of ownership, because now that they have them back, OpenAI, the board and all of that, they still have the controlling interest.
Okay.
And
But
Microsoft
they
didn't
still
fight
have
it.
an all new board. They have an all new board now.
Yep.
They got rid of the ones that were there. I have never seen anything like this in my life. It is really quite interesting because what people don't understand is when this whole concept came out, Musk was involved in all of this.
Right.
Yes.
Altman was also involved in all of this.
Yes.
Well, Musk decided that he wanted to take his ball and go home. So he took his billions away from that. And so therefore, Sam Altman decided to open it up in a different way. So the way that it's kind of run and how it got run was interesting because it was kind of nonprofit, and then they brought it in to separate it to do a profit. So a nonprofit is still involved. So you have ethics codes with that, and then you still have the corporation involved. This is absolutely crazy. But Sam has always said that he wanted to be a responsible person with AI. And I think that he has, for the most part, tried to hold the reins in tight. And I think that he's trying to honor that, but I think once you've let something out the box, you can't put it back in. But what's very interesting to me is there's a part that nobody was speaking about, and I experienced it. And it was OpenAI, ChatGPT, put all memberships on hold.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Not too many people. We can't serve you right now. You can be on a waiting list. Then Sam got fired. And as soon as they fired Sam, that membership opened right back up immediately. So I kind of disagree a little bit with Aisha on that. I'm like, there's some money involved here somewhere.
Well, I'm sure, but I think that percentage is the money. I think that percentage is the money because I suspect that behind the scenes, he probably said, hey, we need to get a rein on this thing. Too many people are complaining about how we're training the AI model on the work of other people, and pretty soon these copyright laws are going to change, and we're going to be in a lot of trouble because Congress is not happy. Congress, when they come back, they're going to start holding hearings about AI and specifically ChatGPT. And so, because remember, if ChatGPT can take my work as a writer and spoof it for someone else, it won't be long before they take U.S. laws and statutes and spoof it. So we don't even need a Congress or a Senate. So that is the kind of thing that I think. It is frightening. And I think that he went to them and said, hey, we've got to get a handle on this before the handle gets on us, right? We need to come in this. And that board, I don't think that board was receptive to that. And they're like, you know what? If he's talking about reining stuff in, this is going to rein in profit. We're going to have to get rid of him. And I think that's where it was. I don't think that Microsoft was like snatched him up quickly because there was a 4-day lag there. I don't think that Microsoft snatched him up on their own account and viewing it. I think there was a mutual conversation. Someone was like, hey, if we get together, if you announce this, that is a power struggle. We got to get rid of that board. We have to get rid of that board. And I think that was the ultimate goal, because once they got rid of the board, he was back on
immediately.
And the employees are much happier. So yeah, exactly. Immediately.
Well, see, and there's so many different facets to this story. I think one of the amazing facets is that the employee said, if you don't bring him back, we're gone.
That's power, y'all. Y'all want to talk about unions and stuff like that? This is the power of the people right now. 100 employees said, we are all out of here if you don't give us what we want. That's pretty powerful, y'all. That's
Well,
no
you got to think
joke.
about it too, right? Because the as much as you like to think that AI is just running automatically, you type something in, you get something fed back. Those 700 people are programming the algorithm.
Right.
They're reading through people's style and doing all the coding and saying how you can write in the style of Stephen King. Okay, there's not going to be any, and I hate the way that we frame this, right? There is absolutely no way that we're going to get AI without people involved in the middle, because
That's
we
right.
don't have computers that can code computers without the
That's right.
input of the data coming from the mind of an actual human, right? That human can probably program a computer to do it, but that idea and that first initial thing has to come from them. So to realize that there are 700 people behind OpenAI and ChatGPT, it's kind of one of those things where you have to ask the questions like, wait a second, so how are they going to get rid of all these jobs when you actually need people? Because basically, if creatives stop creating and we're not looking at creatives anymore, those people won't have anything to pull from to spoof.
Exactly.
I just think it's really, there's so many phases of this story, and like OpenAI now has really come to the forefront. And as you just said, Aisha, 700 people have a lot of power, not only internally with OpenAI, but what it produces and what its influence is.
Yeah, and to just to let you know how this works, because I tested it out. I took something that I wrote.
Okay, I think she's here, Dr. Alicia.
Hey, everybody. Oh my gosh. Aisha, you are killing it, Aisha. And you too, LaLa. I'm learning.
Well, we are so happy to have you. I know you're not on cam. No problem.
No, not on camera.
No, it's all right.
There you go. There I am.
It's okay. But before we continue on, please introduce yourself, because I can't do you justice. I can't do it.
Oh, okay. My name is Dr. Alicia, and my website is Coaching with Dr. Alicia. I am on Instagram with Coaching with Dr. Alicia, and I am a therapist, a social worker, and a college professor. So I train adults on how to become therapists. So I'm just head over heels in psychopathology and psychodynamic theory and research and everything all about healing and helping people. So that's who and what I am. But I'm a social worker at heart.
No, you're a mother at heart.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, to be a mom, you have to be a social worker and a therapist and all of that.
Social worker, doctor, teacher, everything.
Doctor, teacher, all of that stuff.
So thank you for taking the time. And we got some other conversation topics. I think one of the things we're gonna be chatting about tonight is the state of American schools, public schools. So
okay.
Well, so we got
my mom was a teacher, so yeah.
There you go. So Dr. Alicia, what is your thoughts on this OpenAI stuff going down?
Oh my gosh, I wish Boyce was here to talk a little more about it. He keeps talking on and on about it, but I think it is here and it's not going anywhere. OpenAI. On the education side, we are concerned in academia about the integrity of students' responses and answers, just because OpenAI and ChatGPT can do all the work for a lot of students, and it's very difficult for us to know what to do. So it definitely is a topic in higher education, and partly of what we do is we get writing samples from students so we can know, students are terrible writers. So if they start writing really eloquently, I'm like, no, this is not right. But in my field, I think we maybe are pretty much protected, because a lot of what you do is you have to relate it to yourself, and you have to you have to reflect. So it's a lot of reflection. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's happening with you and your reaction to the content. So it's difficult. It would be really difficult in my field. We're trying to come up with very clever ways to get around it, but I'm all for it. I really do like it. I'm such a control freak that I can't have Chat GPT write everything for me. So I'm like, no, that's not how I would say it. It doesn't sound like me. But and I did. It's so funny because Boyce has this app where you can have a conversation with Chat GPT or whatever. You can have a conversation. Hey, what should I do about? And I asked them. I said, hey, are you guys one day going to replace therapists? And they were like, no, we can never replace a therapist because we don't have the ability to have the nuance of human interaction. So there's no substitute for that. So thank goodness, right now she's telling me that she doesn't do that. But that's about all I have to. I'm all tapped out with OpenAI and Chat GPT. You got all my thoughts right there.
I worry. What you're saying though makes me worry though, because they said initially when it first came out, I asked the same question about writers, and it said that writers have different voices and varied experiences that make them unique in certain words that they choose to use. So that part can't be replaced. But I did put my own writing into Chat GPT and said, hey, can you write about this topic? It was a random topic in my voice. If I put my work in there so it could train on my voice, and it spit something back out to me. Now, me personally, I could see where it was appropriating my voice, but knowing how I write and that there were certain words they use, I'm like, I would never use those words. But I get where this could happen in college because, back in the day, before Chat GPT, I used to take the first sentence of what my students would write and put it into Google just to see if it was plagiarized. And I had this one student, like you said, there are students that are not great writers, and you get something back and you're like, wait, this is really good. I was reading one student's paper and I'm like, this sounds so familiar. It's good. But I'm like, but I know I've read this before. And they went and got a paper that I published when I was in graduate school in the 90s, in like the late 90s, like 98, right? And wrote it back to me.
Oh.
And that's why I started doing because when I Googled it, I'm like, oh my God, this is my own stuff. And so I wonder if, because professors publish so much, when students start doing that, that's going to be scary.
Yeah.
So when they start going to Chat GPT and say, hey, my professor wrote this paper. I need to write a paper for this professor on this topic. Can you write it in their style? Because the thinking is that it's kind of like the tricking of the mind and saying, well, if my professor can see something in their writing style, they'll probably give me an A in this and that. And it is really scary with where this is going without regulation.
Yeah. Yes, I like to think about. I just, I emphasize to the students where I'm just like, once you graduate, you're going to be expected to know certain things. And as a student, you're not expected to know. Once you graduate, you're going to be expected to know certain things. So you're just cheating yourself really in the long run. It's better to just read the articles and do the work. And I'm trying to appeal to their ethics and integrity, sense of integrity. You spend all this money on this degree, and what good is it going to do you out in the field when professionals are going to be expecting you to perform at a certain level and to have a certain knowledge base, and you don't because you cheated. You cheated your way right on through. So
well, that's because 75% of them say that they're going to need additional. I posted the article in our Discord about them saying that they need more regular feedback from their employers. And when you read the article, it's like it is a lot of hand holding. If an employer has to do that kind of stuff, of the kind of things that they're saying they need, they can't do any other work because they're busy meeting with all their Gen Z employees, and then following up with emails and all this kinds of stuff. And I think you're right, Dr. Watkins. I think that where are they going to be if there's almost like a lack of independence. I think when we were in college, it was really like trial and error. That's where you developed your writing style.
Yeah, but there's also a sense of fragility. Like they're fragile. You know, they like you point something out to them. It's no constructive criticism anymore. You know, if you try to help a lot of people now, they see that as you putting them down, and they end up kind of going to this dark place when all you're trying to do is help. So you do have a little bit of that going on as well. Like you know, I did this or I copied this, but then how dare you question me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just going to interrupt for a second. Joining in, man, this is true Black lady magic. Check who's coming in, family.
Dr. Tachi!
Hi, Dr. Tachi.
Hey, good evening.
Hip hip hooray!
Good evening.
This is a true Black lady magic moment for me. This is amazing. Dr. Tachi,
Thoughts.
what's going on, Dr. Tachi?
Same old, same old. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness. I mean, everybody, all y'all tonight. Wow.
Yes, Dr. Tachi.
Yeah.
You're the one. You're the one.
So for people, Dr. Tachi and Dr. Alicia about 2 weeks ago appeared on Dr. Alicia and Dr. Boyce's platform. Wow, I'm trying a blank right now.
You know,
Fly Nubian Queen. Fly Nubian Queen.
Voice is still chopping up that video, sending that one out.
No
Still,
problem.
to this day.
He loves it. I see.
Yes,
That's
and they were
unusual.
they were talking about hip hop and culture from a Black professor, lady professor's lens. So check that out.
And I missed it.
Oh, I can send you the link. I can send you the link.
No,
but,
I want to be on that conversation. I missed that conversation.
Oh, well, maybe
You know that's Aisha's wheelhouse.
So Dr. Tachi, for those who don't know, she does so many things, but the easiest thing is for Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Mediascope, livest program online about media, tech, and pop culture. Also 6 p.m. Eastern Time, same day, same program, longer format on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, other platforms, and also the driving force behind Indie Soup Media, which is coming up a brand new OTT for independent content creators. Dr. Tachi, what is your thoughts on all this OpenAI chaos?
You know, well, there's chaoses, which is not a word, but it's a word now. Chaos is. And that started with I knew that there was going to be something. Let's talk about it since you all are speaking about it from the standpoint of student use. I think when I came in, that's what you were talking about. And I was like really on my toes this semester because I'm like, I need to make sure none of these Bamas are using ChatGPT for what, and thank God they were, because I could tell by the way they were, yeah, you're not getting help. So I was happy to see terrible writing for the most part. Yeah, I mean, most of them were good, solid cop, but I could tell they did not have help because it would have sounded way too academic and way too unlike what a college student would sound like. So that was good news. Some of them I'm like, you need to use ChatGPT. Use my subscription, please. But so there's chaos there because there, amongst academics, not just higher ed, but also K through 12, there's grappling with trying to balance the promise that generative technologies have with using it for plagiaristic, again, not a word, but plagiaristic, pursuits and to present work that is not theirs. Although that's something that has been happening. I mean, I heard Aisha talking about all of these things in terms of students presenting their work. And sometimes they don't even know that they're doing it. I'm like, you do know I wrote this, right? So it's been happening since before AI. This now just presents a neat and quick way to make it happen. And then it doesn't help when we're talking about, and that's why I kind of hate the narrative of people saying, oh yeah, you could, write all the captions and do all this stuff and write ebooks. So why would we expect students to do any better when the people out in the real world are using this for the same purposes? You can't expect people to do what you won't do yourself. So I hate that narrative. I do like AI because it does help. It is a place to start. The problem is too many people are using it as a place to finish as well. So that's one thing. Number two, the whole thing with Sam Altman and is this what we're talking about in terms of, yeah, okay. So what I want to know is what the hell really happened, because what we're not getting is the entire story. So there were 4 people on that board that had the power to make him step down, and they were saying, okay, we don't want you anymore. So fine, he's fired. The 700 people, that the 700 plus employees said, that's fine. He walked, so do we. Okay, they were going to bring him on to Microsoft. All right. So then he's like, okay, well, yeah, I'll come back, but all y'all have to step down. The entire board, you must leave. So everybody but one person leaves. So there are so many holes. Is it really our business? On the surface, no. But underneath, yes, because you're dealing with a technology that has the power to do a lot of good and a lot of harm. So for one company to have a stranglehold on that, it's really interesting and can be borderline dangerous. So yeah, we do need to know what the impetus was. Because remember, when OpenAI was founded, they were founded with the intent to be a nonprofit research arm to explore what AI could do. Then they started to, apparently under Sam Altman's pushing, started to look at commercial pursuits. And I'm not blaming them for that. You need to make money somehow. But that's one of the reasons, supposedly, that Musk, sorry, that's not nice. I was about to say muskrat, but Elon Musk stepped down because it was not in line with the original pursuit. Now, whether or not I believe that is a different case because his actions show otherwise. But those are my thoughts on it. It is a very interesting, and I think that we do need to know exactly what happened and why he was asked to step down. And it could be something that's very innocent, but it could be also something that's very dangerous. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, it's almost like I feel like we're gonna have a movie, a really weird sci-fi movie about what all happens with this AI, because like it's almost, because I would like to listen to what academics think, and the academics on that board, to my memory, is that they were just really concerned about something that happened. They won't really say exactly what it is. If anybody knows, let me know. But the academics are the people who I wanted to pay attention to, and I think they were concerned about potential harm that could be done, like actual harm that could be done. I don't know what they saw. Can anybody speak to that? Like what the people on the board saw? Did you cover that already, Dr. Vibe?
I don't think
What
that
they
information
saw
is actually out,
No.
Dr. Alicia.
that spooked them out.
I don't think that information is out, and that's
No.
probably one of the problems from my end as someone who writes and see that people use it primarily for writing and creating content. Someone who edits other stuff, I will tell you, and like I mentioned earlier, I used it to do my own stuff just to see how it would spit it back to me in my own words. To be perfectly honest with you, I can see people using it saying, okay, here's a sentence or two. Can you help me to make this flow better or rephrase this or, in some way or clean this up. But anytime I've tested it to see it to do a full thing, it is ultimate trash. And the reason I say that is because, and this is where I think students need to be careful, because it will repeat things over and over again in different ways of saying the same thing. If you say like write 5,000 words about such and such, it will take that first sentence and revamp it for over 5,000 words, just different ways. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't go into this. And when young people don't really understand what is being asked of them or how to analyze certain things, they're going to be like, okay, this is a paper. They're going to basically start giving you high school level work in college, which a lot of them already do, but you're going to see that there's not going to be that advancement and that growth in terms of writing and scholarly writing. And it is really pretty it's really pretty interesting, because I want to know actually who's working there to program these algorithms, and is not saying, hey, don't repeat the same sentence over and over and over again.
I think it's getting more and more savvy as they keep having these updates and they're running through. To me, it's way savvy, much more savvy than it used to be. Like, I think the trajectory of OpenAI and GPT, I think it's just the future is looking where it's going to be really refined and much more. It's clunky right now, so I think it's just going to really be so much more interesting, in the future. So I think like this is the early stages of the Mac. Remember the Mac, how antiquated it is now, and how sophisticated it is now compared to how it used to be. I think it's just going to, I don't know.
Well, the more and more we feed it, the more and more it's going to be able to take its direction. So that's where a lot of confliction comes in, because it's wonderful technology. It can be used for good. But the more and more we feed it, the more and more we're feeding the monster.
Yeah. One of the things that I worry about is, remember there's those 700 plus people who are really training the algorithm. When I've seen people say, oh, use OpenAI, or ChatGPT to create a song. For example, I saw this one article where we used ChatGPT to create a song collaboration between Michael Jackson and Prince. And I'm like, first of all, it's crap. But then I read through it and I realized, I'm like, wait a second. I think I just read somebody's interpretation of what those two artists would have written. And it's not someone who remembers those two artists firsthand. And that kind of thing makes me wonder, is there this interpretation piece going on the people who are programming the algorithms? Because if that is the case, then you're also not getting a true model of something. In some, like, for example, someone says they want to write like Langston Hughes. Are you getting the Langston Hughes edition, or is someone feeding you what Langston Hughes's words are supposed to sound like and what they feel from it? And is that what you're getting? And that's the kind of thing that makes me that makes me worry. Like, for example, that Prince and Michael Jackson quote unquote song, I saw the word purple in it so many different daggone times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Prince wrote one song like that. He wrote a few songs where he might have thrown it in, but it wasn't every song.
Well, you know where I think that's coming from? I think it is, number one or two or three. One thing that we know is that, especially with ChatGPT 4, and there are other types of generative AI. ChatGPT is not the only one, but it's the most popular. It's like Kleenex or Xerox now. So with ChatGPT 4, for people who pay that $20 a month, that version actually also scrubs the web. So what you're getting is a culmination of probably the things that are most popular, and Purple Rain is extremely popular. And I'm sure that it looks at Billboard charts, what was popular at that time. So it scrubs everything. And if it does an analysis, if Purple Rain appears several times connected to Prince, that's what you're going to get. Hence the overuse of the word purple in there. So you're getting a mashup of what AI thinks would be that. So that I think that more so than possibly because algorithms are programmed by people, but that's why it's also machine learning, because after a while it learns that this is the best way to do things, or this is the quote best result. So that's where that is coming from, all of that. And so I think that that's why students, as you all were saying, also have to really be careful, because the thing is too, Aisha, to your point also, that things that come out are terrible. It is the same thing with the thing garbage in, garbage out. So because people don't know how to provide proper prompts for AI, you're going to get nonsense. So the prompt,
yeah, you hit it right on the head. That's exactly where I was going. You've got to know your prompts. You've got to keep like garbage in, garbage out. You've got to be very clear on what you're asking it for it to give you back something that's even relevant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the garbage in, garbage out. And so on top of prompting it properly, oh, and I just lost it. Okay, never mind. I'll come back to it. I was so into the prompt. There was
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. There was another point that I wanted to make, but it will I'll come back to it. Don't worry.
But what you're saying about the prompts is so right, Dr. Tachi, because, you know, and again, I also wonder too, is that a generational thing? And I see this because I realize, you know, not just as I get older, but I look back at my youth too. I like things a certain way. Certain generations, we like things a certain way. And when we say we want this way, it's very specific. For example, I ordered a Diet Coke today with diet cherry syrup, lime, and 5 maraschino cherries. That is what I asked for.
Yes.
And I did not get what I asked for. I said, did you include the 5 maraschino cherries? Yes, I put cherry in there. And I get it. It's the diet cherry syrup, the lime, but the cherries were missing. And it's like, I realized that this person probably did not understand what maraschino cherries are, because it was probably a very specific generational thing. You know, my generation and older probably know what those are, but just assume that because they put the cherry syrup in it made. No, I was very specific. I knew what I was asking for. Don't give me what I'm not asking for. And so I learned, and I learned this having a kid that's 21, that the very specific and nuanced things, that's one thing that technology has taken away from them. It is the specificity that comes with, you know, knowing particular things and how things work, and this general way of looking at things and looking at things in detail. So when you ask ChatGPT something and you ask for it in specific detail, and you might have to write a whole paragraph to get it to understand exactly how you want it to how you want to program it to give you the output that you want. But we're talking about a text generation, text generations behind us, who they need to get what they say out in one line in 240 characters. And it's not, and so, like you said, garbage in, garbage out. You can't get that kind of nuance and that detail by just putting in, 1 or 2 sentences.
So right now, there is no substitute for the hard work and the late nights that I was banging my head up against the wall, trying to find the right word, trying to put my sentences together, trying to edit my writing, all the pain you go through to be a good writer. There's no shortcut to that. And I've earned the right to use ChatGPT. I feel like other people, you have to earn the right to do it.
You know what? It's interesting, because I was working on, there was somebody else, another professor that I was going to work on a book with. And okay, maybe I'm just too honest. Maybe I'm just too old school. But she was like, do you think we should write a ghostwriter? And of course, this was before commercial chat GPT was out. You think we should use a ghostwriter? I was like, sweetheart, we went to grad school to learn to write. We will not use a ghostwriter. But she's not the only one. There are other people that feel that way. And now Chat GPT has become this ghostwriter for some people. The only thing that I am certain of is that fraud is always discovered. So even if you use generative AI to write all of your stuff and you purport to be this wonderful expert or scholar, the moment you open your mouth at a conference, on an interview, people know you don't know what you say you know. So be very careful with that, because it may make you look better than you actually are.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something too. When I have tried to like manipulate this thing to see what it would spit out, it takes longer for me to sit with that app than it does for me to just write what I'm going to write, how I want to write it.
Yeah.
Because if you're a good writer, a really, really good writers can write pretty fast.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, and
so it's like, dag, I'm like, I wasted an hour just trying to get you to do one sentence here when I could have had a whole, 1,000-word article done.
Because it doesn't have the Aisha nuance.
Right.
And that's the thing about it. Your writing and the way you do things is very nuanced, and the way anybody writes. So I, as an exercise, I gave it a prompt to write a half hour pilot for a sitcom. And I gave it all the specific things that I wanted in it. It was god awful. I was like, this was during the writer's strike too. I was like, your job is safe. And that's because there are certain things that it's not going to get. There are certain things that need humans to get when it comes to human situations, especially with what's funny, especially with the sitcom. And I gave it a prompt for something that I had kind of written and worked on before. And then when I compared, I'm like, my dear, you are so far off the mark. But it will get to the point that it gets closer to nuanced writing. And so that's what we have to look out and be careful of.
Yeah, there's a movie.
At that point, if you want Chat GPT, you can get Aisha GPT. Just email Dr. Vibe, and I will give you a rate.
I love it. No, my daughter was telling my 13-year-old Taylor, she was telling me that this movie that came out, this Disney movie, Wish, that it was written by Chat GPT because of the writer's strike. And she said, Mom, it's so bad. I heard like everyone's talking bad about it. Like it just can't, it was a test to see if it can be written as well as actual human beings. And apparently it's not very good. And it didn't do very well in the box office.
No. And you know what, too? Here's the other thing, too. When you're talking about nuance, Dr. Tachi mentioned this, and you mentioned it, Dr. Alicia, is that real writers take breaks. They back away from whatever they're writing. They go, they get refreshed. They think some more about it. They contemplate it. They read back what they wrote, and then they're like, well, maybe I want to go in a different direction. That's something that Chat GPT doesn't do. It doesn't incorporate the process. It does not incorporate the process, because there is a process that comes with writing. There's a process that comes with it that stimulates your creativity. It stimulates how you want to present things. There are words that you might, you might have heard, like, oh my gosh, this word is going to go so well in this sentence. Let me keep that in my brain for a minute. And then you write a whole sentence, which I've done, around a particular word because you wanted it to flow a certain way. And I like, for my writing, it doesn't rhyme, but I like for it to sound musical in terms of the different syllables and how many syllables to use in a particular sentence before it goes. Those kinds of little tricks and things that you learn in the practice of writing and in the process don't come out through these AI technologies that spoof writing.
Oh, Aisha, you saying there's like a divinity when it comes to writing? Is there like a higher power? You're like a vessel for a higher power speaking through you in your typing. As you type, you're going to a whole nother level. You don't even know what you're writing. It's just like when
I write, honestly, my writing process, if I'm sitting in front of a laptop typing, it's already written because
Yes.
it's been written in my head. Usually
Yes.
I go and I sit outside, I sit calm and I think about a particular topic. I think about how to analyze it, what it should be analyzed. And then I sit and try to ask those questions. And I know that not all of it's coming from me. I know that there are, I think about what other people have said, other people have asked, you know, and just how do I incorporate all of this stuff in one cohesive piece. And then once I figure out the order process in my head, then I sit down and write, and the words come to me. I don't have to sit
Yes.
and think. So I think that with one of the challenges, and when we talk about schools, we're going to get to this, but one of the challenges that I think young people don't realize is that these things are like with anything. If you want to get good at playing an instrument, if you want to get good at sports, it's as much practice as anything else. If you want to pass a test, you study. That is practice. So the same thing occurs with writing.
Okay, I'm going to jump in because the conversation is going great, but I'm just going to kick in with a few quick comments. Regina Ferris talks about it. ChatGPT, yes, it's glitches. She also says, I was sick of all the folks insisting that MJ and Prince collaborations while they were still alive. Never mind with AI. And then she has two other questions. Here's a quick one here. Can't there be an AI ed tech filters placed on all school district campus work submissions? I have no idea. I'll let the professors
Yeah.
go there.
Yeah, they have it.
They do have it, because especially with the chat GPT-4, especially that is pulling from the web, there is something called turnitin.com that a lot of us use. And that's just one subscription, but a lot of schools have turnitin.com, which is something where you can put in students' papers and it will determine the percentage of it that appears in other sources. So now that it is also scrubbing the web, it will appear there. And I think actually OpenAI was working on a tool
Yeah.
to determine that as well.
And also they're doing it in professional arenas too. So if you you know, if you write articles and things like that, or you know, original stuff, there are tools that can be used to see what percentage of your actual work came from AI.
Okay, and one other question from the audience. Regina again says, so is it safe to say now that not all art is derivative?
Not all art is derivative, but if we let these things get out of control, it will be.
Anyone else want to add on that at all? Going once, going twice. All right. Well, since we're in that sort of educational vein, we're going to jump into this conversation piece. And we've got three educators here. So, America's public schools are on their last legs. The proportion of students attending a school with, quote, chronic absenteeism has doubled since pre pandemic times. Who'd like to start first on this one?
Well, my best friend's a principal. And she said that this is a problem. You know, everyone in my mother's side of the family, my mom, my sisters, and great aunt, all educators. So one of the things that I worry about, and we started talking about this briefly at the start of this conversation, are the impact of these groups like, you know, the Planned Parenthood, Moms for Liberty. I worry about the impact that they're going to have. I worry about the impact of these people who are running school boards, because you're talking about a bunch of people who are not educated and have no experience teaching, trying to decide what students can learn and how they learn. And these are things that if anyone knows anything about truancy, because chronic absenteeism after a certain point becomes truancy, that they're not hearing the kids. One of the things that leads to this is kids lose interest. There's nothing in the school that is speaking to them. They don't see anything beyond school for themselves. And then when they're in the school building, they have to deal with all the other stuff like bullying and the emotional stuff. But then there's nothing in the learning process that speaks to them. And it's all cookie cutter. Because remember, we're also coming off of a generation that was taught to take a test. They were taught to the test, not taught for the the way that you gain knowledge and information, but they were taught to the test. And one of the reasons that I know I pulled out of higher ed was because I saw the impact that what was going on in 12 through K through 12 education, what happened when they got to college, and the impact that that was having in the higher ed space, where students really did the seriousness of education. It shifted. And of course, you can't expect kids to want to do well, to want to show up, to want to perform when there are other things going on, at home and stuff. But then when they get to school, it's like, oh, all the books are just about white men. Well, I'm not a white man. And then I open up the history book and then, well, I'm going to go to the library and get something about, and there's nothing there. They lose interest. You want to know why kids don't read? Because they don't have the books that interest them to want to read. Who wants to read Little House on the Prairie in 2023?
I do.
Well, but then again, we also grew up with a TV show on.
No, exactly.
But it's not there now. So yeah.
I wonder how much of it is about the school district, because I have been so critical of public schools. And I have to say, I really love my public school system here where I live. I live in a suburb of Chicago. I gotta say, I've been in my mind, I have this really nasty negative conversation, and I'll go to the school and I'll be thinking, they didn't do this. And I'm like, oh no, they did do that. That was really textbook. That was great. And then I want to be critical of public education because I have 3 children that went through public school education. I did not go through public school education. I went to parochial school. But I want to criticize them. But honestly, I think all things considered, they're doing a great job in my district, where I am. And I want to have a fit. I want to say they're not doing it right. I want to say it's all awful. I want to say these teachers don't care. I want to say the administrators don't care. I want to say that the school is not running right. I want to say that the school is really racist, but I haven't gotten that. I don't know. Just my experience. I think they're doing really great. And they do much better when the teachers and the parents work well together. Then they do a great job. But I haven't run into one teacher, and I'm still searching. I haven't run into one teacher that wasn't willing to work with my child, who wasn't willing to work with me. And there's a system in place, I guess, in Illinois. If you don't work out, they can get rid of you, no questions asked. So I don't know. But not having a child in it, I was very critical. But then once I got all 3 of my children, and they're Black students in a predominantly white district, and there's individuals who are really funny, but those individuals, they get rid of them. I've had a great experience personally. I don't think that's been the experience across the board. I just think my experience is probably unique, but I want to join you, Aisha, in making these criticisms. And I agree with everything that you said. Just firsthand experience, I haven't quite had that same, experience. So I wonder how much of the nuance is there's 2 sides to the story. All of the teachers that I've run into really care about educating the students.
I agree. Most teachers do care. The problem I think that we have in this country is that we don't have a uniform school system. First of all, it varies by state, varies on the district level, varies by city, varies by county, varies by neighborhood. So we have all these children having such a versatile set of experiences. Not, each child has a different kind of experience because the school district itself has different experiences. You have schools like, for example, in certain desegregation cases that said things like, oh, well, there's no constitutional right to a public education. That's true. They have to make the public facility public, but to offer actual schools, a lot of states don't even have schools set up in their state constitutions. One of the things that I noticed in certain areas, like for example, when I lived in South Carolina, in a lot of the poorer areas, particularly where there were large numbers of Black students. Now you remember they had de jure segregation. So they had legally segregated schools. All the segregated schools are gone. Most of those buildings are torn down. And my great aunt actually used to teach at one back in the 50s when she first started teaching. And what happened is they moved those teachers out and they spread them out and they dispersed them. But then they start busing and putting Black children in schools with teachers who did not necessarily like them because of the color of their skin. And then what you find years later is that the same kinds of teachers are coming to these schools to teach. That one of the things that I was shocked to learn when I sat on some task forces in South Carolina on education is that a lot of these Black children, 94% of the teachers that they end up with are young white women who they have nothing in common with, and that the challenge had become that these women were teaching these kids, but it was this is how they got their foot in the door before they went out to another another district or a private school or whatever. Meanwhile, the people who really cared were these paraprofessionals who were usually Black people, usually people from their neighborhoods, people from their churches, but there was no path being offered for those people to go from being paraprofessionals to being degreed, certified public school teachers who would stay through the long haul. I see that here in Connecticut with some of the critical needs spaces, but this is also a challenge we have. We have this, there was an article that I was reading last week where we have some of the, we have an astronomical amount of teachers. We have lots of teachers, but we still have critical shortages in education where there aren't enough teachers. And part of that problem is that people are coming in and they're walking right out the door because it has to do with what these school boards are proposing. These people who are detached. There's no excuse as to why one parent should be able to set policy for 1,100 children without the consent of those parents. And so we're seeing some of that. We're also seeing the pulling away of funding. These people want to come in with the voucher thing and say, oh, we're going to just, well, the money will follow the child to this school. And you've got parents saying, oh, great. Yeah, I want my kid to go to a private school. So the money will follow them. But guess what? That private school doesn't want those kids because what do? They raise the tuition. So the voucher doesn't work and the family can't afford it. Stop. We have to one, start putting our teachers back on the pedestal like we used to. You revere them the way that we used to. A friend of mine used to tell me this, that back, in the 50s and 60s, teachers, they used to get the first pew at the church. They were so revered. They were thought of as being on par with the doctors and the lawyers and all of that. We need to start doing that. We also need to pay them what they're worth. There is no excuse for a teacher in Mississippi to be making $24,000 a year after working 5 years when that is exactly what they owe for 1 year of education to get that degree to teach. This is ridiculous. We need
All
to
right.
make sure that these things happen. And so,
Aisha, I'm going to cut you there. LaLa, I've not heard from you in a bit.
Well, partially because my son is 36.
Yeah.
And so I don't really deal with so
Okay.
much of that for the youth, but it doesn't mean that I don't really pay attention to it because I do have nieces and nephews, and to me they are just as important as our children. Like, it takes a village to raise a child. I am completely on board with Aisha in the fact that we do not honor this profession at all. Most teachers are having to do 2 and 3 different jobs just because they're not getting paid well. And the respect, when the children come to school and don't have respect, then it goes back to the home. So you have to deal with not only the aspect of the kids coming in with disrespect, not really willing to learn in some cases. I'm not going to say all children, but let's face it, this world of TikTok, this world of Instagram, this world of instant influencer has become so big that the learning process is not so much as important as it used to be. And so they see that as, oh, I just got to get through this so I can become an influencer. I see it every single day. You have parents who are also taking their children and creating that influencer status for them as well. So once again, you have a push and pull of what's going on. There's a lot going on in this broken system, but there are a lot of teachers who are coming straight out of school, just like Aisha said, and they come in and they turn right back around and leave. We have to give them an incentive to stay. We have to give them the support that they need. And we have to do it as a full-fledged community because the government is not going to do it. That's my saying.
All right, Dr. Tachi.
Yeah. No, all of this is so true. And LaLa, you were talking about the whole influencer thing. Here, absolutely right. I think though, there is not so much influencer, but content creator. It's a real thing. And I think sometimes people don't view it as a real job. It is. It's a lot of work. All of us create content and we know how damn hard it is. so it is a real job. I think this is what people are seeing, even on the K through 12 level. They're seeing that these are options. So they're saying, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. Because there are not a lot of other options that not necessarily make sense, but that give them the autonomy to do things. But I think here's the biggest thing. The education system we have was designed for the days of old, and they have not changed anything. And so there's a conflict and cognitive dissonance with the fact that now there is a new economy of creators, there's a gig economy, etc. And even though we say it's, that's young because it's K through 12, it's really not, because you're looking to prepare them for what's out there, and what's happening is they are not. So you're sticking with the same antiquated narrative of education, and it's not doing so. Of course they're going to be bored. Of course it's not helpful because it's not preparing them for what's out there. And I levy the same allegation at colleges. When you're working in a department and you're seeing what they're teaching, I'm like, but this is okay. So me being communication, most of the people when I was full time in university wanted to do they wanted the media. So the other end was rhetoric and the writing and things like that. So you had some, but most people wanted the media end of it. So they were like, oh, well, let's, get them ready to present at such and such. And that's great. I believe in that, but they don't give a damn about that. That's not what they want to do when they get out. So we need to start going where we see industries going. That includes K through 12 as well. And that's what's not happening. When we talk about school districts and things, I don't have a child in the public schools, but I for damn sure pay taxes that gets used for that. So we have to, with the things that we're allowed to go to when it comes to school board and public meetings, etc., we need to try and go to. I also agree with the fact that that teachers need to be paid what they're worth. There's no incentive to go to school for education now, none whatsoever. I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't do it, because I'm not going to sit there, or like they say here, I'm not finna go and deal with your disrespectful child and then get paid pennies on the dollar to do it. Please, my peace and sanctity is worth more than that. And that's what the Gen Z said, my peace and sanctity is worth more than that. So I don't blame them for not wanting to go. It's not worth it, even though here's what the system always does. They expect those of us that are the least of them to always give up the nothing that we already have to make the society better. We never hold the people who actually have the money and the power accountable for making the society better, because after all, you all were the ones who helped to denigrate it. So, but we never hold them accountable for putting that money back and making things better. It's always us who has to give up time and give up. I'm in an organization where I pay for the pleasure of doing public service. And we're doing the things that really should be done by local government, etc., like street cleanup. I don't want to clean up your damn streets. That's a whole different thing. But, it's that same type of thing. And they always are, oh, well, you're supposed to serve, and you are supposed to serve, but not when people are paying for you to do other things. And we need to hold people accountable when it comes to the public school system. Yes, we want to serve. Yes, we want to see people do well, but we're not willing to serve when it comes to a job as a teacher and we're making nothing and dealing with a lot, and not when we have to volunteer when people are paying taxes. I'm sorry.
I got one more thing to say. I'm looking at
ahead.
I'm looking at your absenteeism, chronic absenteeism quote here. And, as a therapist, I have, during the pandemic, the number of adolescents that were in my office was really something quite shocking. And it was to the point where there's one little girl that I meet with. I've been meeting with her since she was in the 8th grade, and she's now 20. She's 20 years old now. I watched her grow up, and she couldn't meet with me on Zoom. I said, listen, we could just meet on Zoom. We don't have to. She's like, no, I can't do Zoom. I cannot get on Zoom. Her anxiety was so off the charts that there was no way she could do anything digital. And she has to meet with me in person. So we have to find a place for us to meet that's in person. And she wasn't the only one. There were a lot of other young teenagers who were suffering from depression and anxiety. They were overwhelmed with just going to school. One little girl, I had to our entire sessions were just about her getting up and getting on the bus. Getting on the bus was stressing her out. And she was just totally freaking out one day because there was a different bus driver. Wasn't the bus driver she was accustomed to. These were some real things that I was facing. And I was like, wow, this is kind of neurotic, but then she wasn't the only one. It was several of them. They did not want to go back to school. And when they did, you're going to say something?
No, you have a very unique lens on Black people. What are you seeing happen with our Black youth?
Oh, they're just afraid. They're in their head a lot. I got teenagers here, and I think it's almost like, what are you thinking? You have a question. Like in my days, if I had a question, I would just ask the teacher the question. They have a question, they just hold on to that question, never gets answered. I'm like, if you get this question answered, you can get the rest of your homework done. Like, what's the matter? Even my teenagers, I'm like, what is it? Why won't you do the work? I don't like the teacher. I'm like, so what? Do the work. I don't like the teacher, so I don't do it. And it's just like, who's that harming really? So there's things like that when you get into their head, the level of anxiety and worry that's so crippling that they can't even ask a simple question in class. Oh, and Zoom really did it, because it was just like taking attendance on Zoom back during the pandemic. It was just like, oh my God, they're going to call my name and I have to say here. That was a topic. Their parents paid me money for a session because they could not say here on Zoom when it was their turn to get their name called. And all of them had their hood. So it was like a policy with keep your cameras on. That was the policy. And my kids would have hoodies, and the hoodies would come over their head so no one could see them. This hasn't stopped. No one could see them because they had to turn their cameras on, but the cameras would be pointing at the ceiling. I had to wake my daughter up several times because she was falling asleep. And then my son barely even did anything. He was he went to a boarding school. in Illinois. It was a math and science boarding school. And he was so integrated. He was loving school. He was on the basketball team. He's 6'8", right? On the basketball team, doing all this great. His entire senior year was online. He had nothing. He didn't even care about school. I don't really care. And he said, if I go to college and it's online, I'm not going.
Wow.
Have you figured out where this has come from? And my reason for asking, my daughter was a senior too when the pandemic started. It was the last half of the year. But I wonder where all of this anxiety, even the thing about the teacher's going to call my name and this and that, is coming from, because they did that when we were in school. We were in school too. And, I think about my experience of leaving my homework at home one day and my teacher embarrassing me in front of the entire class when I was in second grade. But why that did not stop me from showing up and the next time proving her wrong and making sure, where is the disconnect there for kids now?
I mean, think about these kids. And all these kids grew up post 9/11, and everything has to be safe. And they wear helmets. I didn't wear a helmet at all. If I fell and I was riding my bicycle, I just would like wipe the blood off my knee and keep going. Now it's just like, oh no, you fell. It's the coddling. You should look up this article called "The Coddling of College Students." It's on in the Chronicle of Higher Education. I don't know if anyone gets that. But
I actually read that article. Yeah.
You read that article. Wasn't it eye-opening? It's like the coddling. These kids are so coddled. It's like they've never faced adversity. Everything has been planned for them. Play dates. You have a play date planned for you. Everything is about safety and security. And here's all these things. When actually we live in the safest. We are the safest than we've ever been historically. Like things are not going to happen. The likelihood that anything bad is going to happen to you is very small compared to history, right? What it used to be. But, but now people are just way more afraid because look at what we see on news. We turn the TV on. Everything is like frightening and scary and embarrassing, and social media, these kids someone takes a bad picture of you and it's splattered all over social media. Last 2 years, every time there was a school fight, I saw it on my daughter would bring, it was a fight in the cafeteria. And I'm looking at the fight on her phone because everybody Snapchat and they sent it to each other and all the school fights. So now they had to ban, there's no cameras at all in the school anymore because people have been taking videos of people and putting it out there. And it's embarrassing. Like the cyberbullying and the constant criticism and the self-talk that they tell themselves. Oh my God, if people saw this, if people saw me how it is, people saw this, people will make fun of me or they won't talk to me, or, it's just they're afraid to take a risk and afraid to be out of their comfort zone. I mean, just think about even your TikTok and your social media. Social media is geared toward me and what I like. My social media has figured me out. And they figured out what I don't like and what I do like. So every time I put on Instagram, it's all stuff that I enjoy. They know my like button and what I'm interested in. Anytime a therapist would get on there, I know I'm going to see it. So a lot of people aren't confronting opposing views. Like I'm not even forced to stretch the way I see things and perspectives from different ideas and thoughts from different perspectives because everything is tailored to what I like. So when I see something that's opposing, of course, we're old enough, we can handle it. But just think about a child that grew up where everything was tailored to them. I mean, just think about how education. It's like they talk about, what is it? Individuation. It's a word they use in education because instead of the child adjusting to the school environment adjusts to them. And so they're not forced to stretch. See? And that's why they have all this anxiety in high school now.
And doesn't that come from this? I think I explained this to someone, that it comes from that period in the 90s where you had parents, late 90s, early 2000s, where you had parents who like, oh, well, the teacher's not going to tell my kid what to do. I get to say what happens to my kid and what my kid does. And so you have teachers having to kind of back down,
Mhm.
even from just the regular classroom discipline of telling a child, hey, put that away, sit up, you're not going to sleep in my class, and we're going to this. And the kid goes, I need to go to the office, goes, calls the parent, and the parent comes and they're cursing the teacher out. And then the kid takes advantage of that situation. We didn't grow up with that.
Mm-mm.
You know, and my mother being a teacher, I knew not better to act up because my teachers knew where my mother worked and to call her. And
Right.
I knew that my mother had no problem calling me to the office to come get the phone. And I don't think that kids have that. You're right. Parents have coddled to the point where it's like even just the expectations that we should have of kids coming to school, knowing that you don't put your hoodie up when you're in the school building, you don't wear a hat, things that were against the rules for us, and we didn't fight anybody on because we just knew that you didn't do that.
You know, it's interesting. Two things. So when I was at Morgan State University, it was the opposite, and probably because parents were paying. So I had, and you can't give this information anymore, but they would call me because one of the things, yeah, I was faculty, but all the faculty were also advisors. Like we didn't have separate advisors. So I had a whole slew of communication students I was advising. I would get calls every day like, how are you? Great. How's my son doing? You tell him I said that if he gets anything less, they were on it because they're like, look, we're paying. You will not waste our money. So we are going to call your professor every week to make sure you're doing what you're doing. Now, again, you can't do that anymore because it's private, like the
Yeah, FERPA laws.
yeah, exactly. That was before that, like just before that. So, but it showed that when parents have a stake in it, whether they're paying or whatever the case is, they're more likely to be on their kids when it comes to that type of stuff to do what they're supposed to do.
Mm.
Secondly, I'm guessing maybe, and I'm just guessing, but I was definitely a latchkey kid. So it's like you would get home and nobody was home. So you fend for yourself. It's like Lord of the Flies, okay? Everybody was like that. That we were all like, just fending for ourselves. But while some people may find that terrible, I actually value that I had to make a way out of no way and find a way. So when it came to things, I already, like, even now, I don't need to ask people for, I mean, it's good and bad. I don't need to ask people for help because I know how to do X, Y, Z. But I recall I asked my students I said, well, just take the bus there. We don't know how to you don't know how to take the bus. How dare you not know how to take the bus? So just simple things like that. And again, the school, when I first moved down here, the school that I taught at, Nova Southeastern, is a private school. So it's not a state school. So you have some very wealthy students that are going there. So they're driving, they drive cars better than what we have. They're driving in Mercedes Benzes and BMWs and stuff. And of course, it's Florida. So you have that kind of showy bling thing. So they're driving there. And so the fact of needing to, for example, take a bus and fend for themselves, their parents would rather, let me just buy you a car so you can get there. Granted, we don't have the best public transportation system, but my mother would have been like, too damn bad. Find your way. Whereas there's the thing, and I understand why parents do it, because they don't want their children to either go through what they went through or to suffer, but you're handicapping your children by not letting them have these experiences. Sometimes you just bloody have to let them get lost. Sometimes you just have to let them go and figure it out for themselves. They will be a better person for it.
Yeah. Yeah. For example, I can't see these kids. Like, I used to drive from Connecticut to Nashville to get to Fisk and back by myself with just a index card, like with the directions to get past the Tappan Zee Bridge. Never mind. It's like, oh, just take 95 there or 91 till you get wherever you're going. And it's like, I didn't have that fear of getting lost, Dr. Tachi, like you said, because it's like I knew I had the skills to figure it out. What if these kids they lose the GPS signal?
They're not going.
Right.
They're just missing out. And they're having a meltdown. I had a client that couldn't put gas in her car. She was scared everybody was looking at her. She was scared some people were looking at her. I've had more than one person say that to me. I can't put gas in my car. What's going on? Well, I'm just scared that I'm going to make a mistake and people are watching me.
But isn't that part of the parents' problem with the coddling, making them think that they are the center of everybody's universe and everyone is watching them? Because I don't care. I don't think about anybody else when I'm putting gas in my car. I'm just trying not to blow my own self up.
Oh my goodness.
We're from that generation where they told us, "Ooh, don't open your car door if you're going to put gas while you're putting gas in the car because it'll blow up." Yeah.
Oh my God.
Everything was going to explode back then. Right? We were always just on the verge of being blown to smithereens.
Way too prepared for an explosion that never happened.
Exactly.
Well, I think on that note, ladies, we're going to call it an epic conversation. Don't open your car door when you you can open your car door when you're putting gas in, by the way. We're not saying that, but my heart is full. This has been amazing. And I want to say a special thanks to Dr. Aisha and Dr. Tachi for helping make this epic conversation. We know you got lots of things going on, so we don't take it for granted you taking the time out of your positive productive schedules of being who you are, not only for yourselves, but so many to spend with us. And whenever you want to come on, you're more than welcome to come on. Dr. Aisha, tell people where people can come get in contact with you.
The best way to keep up with me is on Instagram, Coaching with Dr. Aisha. And my website is coachingwithdralicia.com. So you can find me either one of those places.
Fantastic. Dr. Tachi?
Yeah, same and for some reason I'm an Instagram person. You can find me at Dr._Tachi on Instagram. I'm actually at Dr._Tachi also on YouTube and a bunch of different places, but Instagram is the best way to reach me.
Okay. LaLa, how can people get in touch with you?
You can find me at Living the LaLa on Instagram is where I'm mostly now. I've switched things up a little bit. So you need to make sure you're paying attention. But that's where you're going to be able to catch me. Also, I'm on TikTok as Living the LaLa, as well as my YouTube channel and Facebook. All
right. Aisha K?
Mostly on Instagram. And I second following Dr. Tachi because she and I follow some of the same funny videos and accounts on Instagram. So you'll have a good time. So follow her and then follow who she follows because she's got some really good because I'll notice I'll be like, oh, Dr. Tachi like this too. But yeah, Instagram, AK Staggers on Instagram, and our Discord group.
Yes.
Join our Discord, and that's where else you can find me if you want to have more conversation.
Yes, and the Discord group. Email me at dr.vibe@thedrvibeshow.com. Actually, Dr. Aisha, I would love
both of y'all. Okay.
Yeah, I'd love you to be part of the Discord group if you're up to it. Because I think
hit me up.
Okay, I will. Yeah, what you you know what? I've got you. Okay, I'll send the invite to your coaching email address. Is that fair?
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to let all these ladies go. Hopefully they'll be on for a few moments after we finish. Because folks, if you think this was fire, the after show chat may even be more fire. So we're going to let it go. So we're going to let them all go one at a time out of the conversation here. Here we go. Next up. All right. There we go. Whoa, was that an epic conversation, man? I wish it could go on forever, but we all need to get some rest. You know, we got to give ourselves grace. So a few last things. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube. When you subscribe on YouTube, subscribe and hit the notification button. Also, like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. To advertise your, business, product, or service on the Dr. Vibe Show on any of the platforms I host, email me dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And as Aisha said the other day, join the Primetime Saturdays with Aisha and LaLa Discord group. Email me dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And also too, buy some merch at the store. There is the link on the screen if you're watching this live on the replay. It's also in the comments section on whatever platform you're watched this, either live or watch the replay. So let's see if there's any last comments here. Okay. Jen says, what a fabulous conversation. Loved it. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it, not taken for granted. So I'm going to close it out here, family. With this, as always, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. They aim bigger, aim better, aim higher and wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. While good, share this especially this conversation out because it was epic. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith and walk good.